Hey guys, what's up? This is Keren Margolis with Sasco Digital Assets and our CEO, Omar Sabek. And we're back for another in-depth segment. This time we're talking about how do I buy Bitcoin? Omar.
Exciting topic.
It is an exciting topic. It's a little more complex than just signing up for an exchange and putting in info and just buying some Bitcoin. So what is actually the difference between, for example, buying on an exchange like Coinbase or buying through Robinhood? And can you explain a little bit about the ways that you can buy and self-custody Bitcoin?
Absolutely. So the first thing you need to decide is whether you want to actually buy, what's called spot or physical. All these exchanges offer spot.
What does that mean?
Except for Robinhood and PayPal. Robinhood and PayPal give you exposure to Bitcoin, but you can't actually buy what's, spot Bitcoin. Spot is physical. It means that when you're buying that Bitcoin is actually on the blockchain. It actually exists. When you're buying through PayPal and Robinhood, you're not actually buying something that's physical that you can self-custody yourself and validate and verify on a blockchain.
So you're buying an IOU. You're buying like
You're
a
effectively
certificate.
buying an IOU. Yeah. And the only issue with that, for some people that might be totally fine.
Right.
But especially if you love to live in, if you're kind of a weirdo that loves to live in the PayPal ecosystem. I don't know anyone that likes that, but maybe you're that type of person. Or if you only know Robinhood and you want some quick exposure, it might be okay. But the problem is, how do you really know that it's actually backed by something that's real?
So you're saying that you could buy this certificate of ownership effectively of Bitcoin and not have it be backed up by actual Bitcoin. You just don't have a way of knowing.
You're putting your trust and faith in a company like PayPal or a company like Robinhood that they're actually doing the right thing on their back end to buy the Bitcoin and hold it in their vaults and extend to you the ability to buy it, and that everything is legit and everything is proper. I don't have that much faith in these companies, and I don't recommend that people necessarily do that. The best way to buy something is to actually buy it and validate and have the ability to verify that you actually own it. And, you can do that with Bitcoin. Bitcoin, you can actually take physical possession of it.
Right. So is there like a historical precedent for this kind of thing?
So there is historical precedent for companies that have offered like a paper IOU, and then we're found out to actually not have the actual commodity or whatever was the asset that they're selling in their vaults.
So how did that story end?
Not good.
Okay.
Class action lawsuit against the company that did it. If you go back to, one in recent memories, 2005, Morgan Stanley did this with gold and other precious metals. They were selling it, but they didn't actually hold it. And their investors found out the hard way and actually, filed a class action lawsuit, which Morgan Stanley settled. But it was a lesson to be learned for any investor that when when you're dealing with a counterparty like a brokerage, and you're putting your trust and faith in that counterparty, that you want to do your due diligence to make sure that they actually have controls on the back end to buy these things. There's a couple of exchanges out there. I think you mentioned a couple: Coinbase,
right.
River. Cash App, and there's more. There's Binance, there's more. And on those exchanges, you could buy the Bitcoin and you can move the Bitcoin off. So you can move it off. You can send it to somebody if you're buying something or paying for something in Bitcoin, or you can send it to yourself in a form of self-custody. And that's generally the best practice when it comes to buying Bitcoin.
So, okay, let's talk about self-custody for a sec, because we mentioned storing your own Bitcoin in your own wallet. But what does that mean? So first of all, what's a wallet? It's not the same as a physical wallet, obviously, but it's analogous. So what is that? And what's the difference between the wallets that we mentioned?
So a wallet is actually, I'm going to get a little technical.
Okay.
A wallet is actually an entry on the blockchain that can hold Bitcoin. And the technical term for the Bitcoin on the blockchain is UTXO, which stands for Unspent Transaction Output.
Oh my God.
It's a very fancy way of saying that this wallet has a private key, and that private key can spend this Bitcoin. It's just an entry in a very elaborate and complex database called the blockchain, which is the core technology of Bitcoin. Now, what a hardware wallet has in it is the private key. So it simplifies the ability to transact Bitcoin. It simplifies the ability to unlock or spend the Bitcoin that's on the blockchain.
Okay. So when you buy Bitcoin and you own Bitcoin, even if it's on an exchange, you are holding Bitcoin in a space on the blockchain itself.
When you're holding, so if you have an account on an exchange and you buy Bitcoin through that exchange, then that Bitcoin is probably just in the exchange's database, right? It's not. It's not on. Like you are not necessarily in most exchanges. It's not an entry that's assigned to you on the blockchain.
It's their entry.
It's their entry on the blockchain, and
Right.
it's probably sitting in a massive wallet with tons of other Bitcoin. But the moment that you say you log into your account and you execute a transaction from the exchange to your own hardware wallet, your own address, what the exchange is really doing is it's taking that little bit of Bitcoin from that big wallet and sending it to your wallet that you specify. And, that's how you move the Bitcoin off, and you're moving it to that hardware wallet where you have the keys.
So it's just like a bank. A bank is sitting on top of your money, but they're not portioning it out with a little cubbyhole with your name on it. It's just the stack of money of everybody's money, and you can withdraw it at will.
Exactly.
So there are different kinds of wallets. They're not all the same.
There's hardware wallets, there's software wallets, there's multi-signature wallets. It can get a little complex.
So would you say that the umbrella difference is hot wallets and cold wallets?
That's one type of difference.
Okay.
So a hot wallet is going to be like a software wallet that's on your laptop. The problem with hot wallets is it's connected to the internet.
Right.
And if you're connected to the internet, you could get hacked, and you don't want to have that kind of a situation.
So, but we're not talking about the Bitcoin network being hacked. We're talking about your app being hacked.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And then a cold wallet is offline.
Yeah, cold wallet does not exist on the internet, so it's pretty much because it requires a physical press on the hardware device. It's pretty impossible. It actually is impossible to hack that from, let's say, a foreign attacker or someone that's remote. So the only way that it could really be hacked is if someone steals it and knows the PIN.
Steals the physical device, knows your actual PIN.
Exactly. And is able to get in that way.
So you're just eliminating variables of how someone can actually access your private wallet.
Exactly.
Okay. So we've talked about, I'm going to change it up a little bit. We talked about Bitcoin previously being permissionless, trustless, theoretically anonymous or pseudonymous, right? And yet we're talking about buying Bitcoin on an exchange, which requires you to input some identifying information. And so that's not anonymous. It's the opposite of anonymous. And it's also not trustless because you're trusting the exchange, and it's not permissionless because you need their permission to set up an account. So is there a contradiction there?
So let's separate the two concepts, because you have Bitcoin, a monetary network as itself is permissionless, is trustless, just like the internet. Anybody can interact with it. There's no third party that you need to go through. There's no company that controls access. There's no government that controls access. So you could literally write code against it. You could develop wallets against it. You can own Bitcoin, on the blockchain. What societies have done and what the U.S. government has done is created rules and regulations around the exchanges.
Okay.
So, and very well-meaning. They want to make sure that
Sure.
no one is, using it for money laundering, or if they are using it for illicit purposes, that to have a way to kind of trace back to the individual that owns the Bitcoin, that bought it through an exchange. And that's why the laws mandate that the exchanges follow what's called KYC, AML processes. KYC is know your customer.
Right.
AML is anti-money laundering. And it's all these reporting requirements, no different than, your brokerage, your Vanguard, your Fidelity. You enter your social security number, your address, some other identifying information, and they keep that on file in the event that they have a subpoena or some other
Right.
kind of government requirement to furnish that kind of information.
And it makes sense, and we would expect that from a financial institution that we're entrusting our information and money to, right? It would be weird if they didn't ask for information.
Yeah, I mean, it's well-meaning. There are other ways to do. I mean, there's ways. Criminals are always going to find ways to skirt that. So,
But the question is, can you not skirt that? I don't mean for like nefarious purposes, but can you access Bitcoin in its pure form? Can you just go to the source and not deal with an exchange?
You could find someone who has Bitcoin and meet him in a shady alley and give him a briefcase full of cash. Yes, you could do that.
Okay, as
You
a
could do that with
woman,
anything.
I wouldn't.
You could do that with anything, right?
Yeah.
You can also, if you want what's called KYC free Bitcoin, you can set up a mining rig and mine for it. And that's a way, obviously it takes an upfront investment. It takes time.
Right.
It takes energy to be
Right.
able to do that. But if you're patient enough, you can get KYC Bitcoin that way.
So the average person's going to go through an exchange.
Most people go through exchanges. Yeah.
Okay. So what kind of qualities should someone look for in an exchange? We mentioned that there's a bunch and they have different pros and cons, and you should do a little bit of your own research. But what are you actually looking for in a good exchange?
So I think number one we covered, right? The ability to transfer the Bitcoin off the exchange. Number two is I think very important security features, and they all have different range, like different types of security features. One security feature that I think they have to have at a minimum is two-factor authentication.
And what's that?
So when you log into, and you've probably seen this with your email or Facebook or Instagram,
Yep.
you log in with your username and your password, and then it prompts you for, a 6-digit or 8-digit code.
That it sends to your phone.
It's either sending it to your phone. We'll talk about that in a second because
Okay.
that's actually not good practice.
It's not.
It's not. The better way to do it is to use an app like Google Authenticator or Authy, and those apps give you the code.
I've never used that.
We got to get you set up.
Okay.
We'll set you up.
Everything just goes right to text.
The
And then
problem
the text
with the text
knows.
is you can do something called, hackers can, quote unquote hackers can spoof the SMS. And this has happened. And
Okay.
So telephone companies, right? Think about it this way. You're using T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon. If someone theoretically were able to go to someone that works for those companies and say, here's Keren's phone number. I want you to make that phone number my phone number.
Okay.
Right? So they would do that.
I already hate that idea.
Terrible. And then, let's say now I have your phone number.
Okay.
I go onto the exchange. I know your username. I figured out your password. Maybe I hacked you before, right?
Oh.
And so now I'm being prompted for the two-factor authentication. If I have that sent to my phone, I could put it in. You're hacked. You're done. I can steal your Bitcoin.
Okay, so
That's why
then
it's
all
dangerous.
someone actually needs is access to your phone, and so they could just pretend to be you.
Exactly. Well, someone could either get access to your phone or they can steal, do what's called like a SIM card attack. It's very common. If you Google SIM card attack, you see it happens. It's very common.
This sounds
It's
horrible.
Yeah. And that's the reason why you don't want to have any two-factor authentication codes. Actually, literally exchanges and Bitcoin companies have been exploited through that method, through SMS hacking. So it's actually very common. And it's but the fact that it's known means that we can mitigate the risk. So
you're looking
Authy is a
for-
best practice. And the other security features that you want to use is blockchain address whitelisting.
What is that?
So what that is, and Coinbase offers this. The way it works is, let's say you have your hardware wallet.
Mm-hmm.
You know that you want to send your Bitcoin to it. What you could do is enable whitelisting on Coinbase, and then Coinbase will only send Bitcoin to addresses that you tell it you want it sent to. So any foreign addresses, any addresses that get put in, they won't send it to without a 48-hour lockup or a 48-hour time period. So let's say, I have my hardware wallet. I go onto Coinbase. I add my hardware wallet to Coinbase. It's going to send me an email that says someone added in, this wallet address. You have 48 hours to tell us whether it's real or not. And if you let that 48-hour time expire, then you'll be able to send the Bitcoin to that address.
Oh, you will be able to send that. Is
will.
that a flaw in the system?
No, it's great.
Okay.
Because that 48-hour gives me an opportunity to say whether it was real. Obviously, I'm the one that put that in, so it's good for me, so I'll let it expire. But if I see that email come across and I didn't put the address in, then that means that I've been
Then
hacked.
you know somebody's after you.
And exactly. I've been hacked and someone's trying to send Bitcoin from the exchange to their wallet, and I have an opportunity to intervene.
So how do you know? What do you actually look for on an exchange to know if you can do that?
It's called address whitelisting. So that's a feature that they'll have. Not all. I think Coinbase is the only one. Maybe Binance offers it now.
Okay.
But it's something that you would want to go onto the exchange, and if you don't see it readily available there, you could probably submit a support ticket or call them, and they'll let you know if they have that feature.
Okay, so we have two-factor authentication, not through your text, through a third-party app,
Yep.
like Authy, etc.
Yep.
And we have white paper.
It's called address whitelisting.
Address whitelisting on the exchange, of course. How did I not know? And is there anything else that you should look for in an exchange before you sign up?
Yeah, generally speaking, you want to just kind of see if they have a history of good security practices. And the best way to determine that is if they've ever been hacked before. And this applies not only to exchanges, it applies to wallets.
Can you think of an exchange that has been hacked, that the entire exchange has actually been hacked? Has that happened?
There's been exchanges that have had Well, Mt. Gox is probably the most famous and well-known one.
Does that exist anymore?
Not anymore because they got hacked. They're done.
So the
That was
market
back in, I think,
decides.
2014, if I remember correctly.
Okay, I remember
Yeah.
the name.
Yeah, generally speaking, if you have poor security practices, you're not going to last very long in this
Probably
space.
not.
So Mt. Gox is probably the most popular one, but there's been a history of exchange hacks. The big ones in America haven't been hacked. Knock on wood. There's been attempts, or there's been, there's a company, a New Jersey-based company that's not an exchange, but they're in a space, and they were infiltrated, not hacked. Very serious security
What, like
breach.
some CIA spy stuff?
They one of their DevOps engineers was using SMS two-factor authentication, and
He should know better.
they should know better.
Or
Absolutely,
she should know better.
And that tells you that if they have an issue there, right? If they're able to, if an attacker is able to get in that way, then generally speaking, they probably have other poor practices, and it's not a bad idea to stay away and avoid any company out there that exhibits poor security practices. But Coinbase is a publicly listed company, and they have a lot of funding. And typically, these companies that have a lot of funding also have the ability to invest in security and to develop the security framework to, ensure that every aspect of their operation is sound. I help people evaluate, which companies have good practices and which don't. But generally speaking, you can't go wrong with Coinbase, can't go wrong with Binance. Those are the two big ones in the US.
So if someone watches this video and is like, okay, blah, 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 I'm just going to pick one, Coinbase, you're it, they'll be fine.
They'll be fine. Cash App is also fine. Yeah. And then reliability is also very important because you want to make sure that you're able to access the site when you need to get access to your Bitcoin.
The site doesn't crash, it's always up, they've got good site hygiene.
Yeah, absolutely. Good
Yeah.
uptime, absolutely. Absolutely. That's very important.
Okay, so that's all the questions I have for you right now. I mean, we'll get more in depth on wallets and all that kind of stuff at a later date. And for the people watching, don't forget that we also offer workshops on this where we provide you with all the hand-holding and resources that you need to go through this whole process so you really don't have to do it on your own. That's literally what we're here for. So that's going to wrap it up.
Thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you
That was
so much,
great.
Omar.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to our channel if you're not already subscribed. Hit the notification bell. You will be alerted as soon as we drop new videos, and we will see you in the next one.